from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hey, it's Dom Giordano, pinch hitting. Love doing Rich show tonight. Dom from Philadelphia, Talk Radio 1210. Rich has the night off. Big family milestone, I'm told. Everything's good, and Rich will be back on Monday. But what a night to be sitting in for Rich tonight. The UK deal. I know, got submerged by the Pope, but I think it's a big, big thing. We'll talk about the Pope. We'll talk about any number of things tonight. And we kick it off with one of my all-time favorite guests. He's become sort of a regular in a busy schedule here in my show in Philadelphia, and he lights up the nights on CNN. Oh, my goodness. Let's bring to the Rich Valdez Show with Dom Giordano sitting in, the one and only Scott Jennings. Scott, it's good to have you on a national platform. We really admire what you're doing, and particularly on a busy news night.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'm coming to you from the CNN studios. I'm going to enter the Thunderdome at 10 Eastern tonight with Abby Phillip, and we'll have it out again tonight. But I'm really looking forward to this conversation as a nice warm-up because, boy, there's a lot going on. Oh,
absolutely. And, Scott, I love the format of this because I've always done stuff like this, the positioning. It's like a cocktail, the five hosts you put on that night, how they trigger each other on the issues of the day. I wanted to begin, though, with you, Scott, on the UK deal. The media, of course, jumping in to diminish. You go through this every night. I don't know if you say it, but in Philadelphia, I say that I don't like the initial approach. It was kind of scattershot on this. I would have picked these off as quickly as we could, then gone after China. But we got a very good one on the board, and the statistics indicate we got a very good deal with the UK today.
Absolutely. And, 2 nights ago, I was on this show at 10 o'clock, and I was assured by everyone out there that Donald Trump was not capable of making a deal, that all the other countries of the world were making alliances to oppose the United States. And the evidence of this was that the UK had made a deal with India. Well, here we are 2 days later, and the UK has made a deal with the United States. It's a great deal for us, and it's a good start for us because we have this historic special relationship with the United Kingdom. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that'll be happy with it. Maybe nobody more so than the beef cattle farmers. This is great for beef. They couldn't do anything in the UK for a long time, and now you have all these farmers who are a huge constituency for the president that are going to be happy. So I think this is the first of many. I talked to the White House tonight. They say, buckle up. There's more to come. And I think this will help. Obviously the markets like it, and the people who were thinking what's going to happen next now have something to say. They've got it going on behind the scenes. It's good for the White House, and it's good for the country. We should be rooting for these deals, not minimizing them.
Yeah, and Scott, the difficulty with the deals, President Trump, you've explained it, sometimes articulates it. It's not just the tariff thing. It's a million ways that each country processes what comes in and all these little twists and turns. So it does take a while to negotiate the fine print, if you will, which really matters.
Absolutely. And it's not just the tariffs, but, you look inside this deal with the UK, and I think they're doing with this every country. They're attacking these non-tariff barriers to entry. There's
right.
These countries sometimes have little loopholes in their laws. The bureaucracy there makes it hard for American companies to even do business in these markets. And I think you're already starting to see in this deal some of these barriers and loopholes being knocked down and closed. That's a good thing. And I don't know what all companies are going to be impacted by it, but I know our situation today is better than it was yesterday and better than it was 6 months ago and a year ago. And that's a good thing for the economy.
All right. Now, I trust your sources, your judgment. It's uncanny what you developed. Well, you can imagine how my son is a budding talk show host. We watch you and what you do as talk show host. It's like watching you run the 40-yard dash through sometimes a bunch of people who don't know what's coming. So, Scott, what is the big news, though? I don't think this is what President Trump was teasing out what happened on Friday or when he goes to the Middle East or right before as the big news. I think it's something related to the Middle East. What's your thought?
I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I have thoughts about what could be coming down the pike. I agree with you that they are heavily engaged in the Middle East. And I also, look, the president also today again, covered up by the Pope, but he made an announcement about calling for a ceasefire, a 30-day unconditional ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine war, and said, look, if you don't follow my lead here, I'm going to impose sanctions on you, which I'm still waiting to see how the people who are determined to paint President Trump as some Russian agent are going to spin this. I mean, he threatened the Russians with sanctions today if they don't stop the shooting and the missiles. So my guess is, knowing him and knowing his disposition towards war and peace right now, my guess is your instincts are probably not off, that it has to be something about trying to bring a little more peace to the chaos in the world.
Exactly. All right, Scott, I think you're a non-combatant in this, but the Pope is still big news, particularly this Pope. I'm a Catholic, sort of. I have a lot of problems with the church in America. What's your takeaway? And tonight, obviously, the takeaway seems to be with progressives. We hear this all the time, that Jesus Christ is a Marxist, essentially. And this Pope did retweet, at least, not just President Trump, but he went after the really smart guy here. And I don't think he's right as a theologian, if I dare say. He went after J.D. Vance recently, on Vance saying, essentially, charity begins at home. So what's the impact of this Pope so far?
Well, first of all, I'm somewhat Catholic adjacent. My wife is Catholic, and I go to Mass a lot. My children are Catholic, and I have some kids in Catholic schools. So I follow it closely, even though I haven't converted.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two, I thought earlier I'd heard today that he was a Cubs fan, and then I learned that he was a White Sox fan, which made me, as a Cardinals fan, I was initially freaking out. And then it was like he likes the White Sox, so it's everybody in baseball is fine with that. So on the policy stuff, my guess, look, it's hard to, I think, apply our political constructs to these. If you truly believe that the Pope is chosen by the Holy Spirit, believe that, the Catholic Church, it's hard to apply our normal political debating constructs to this. But my guess is he's going to be like Francis, which is to say probably more liberal on immigration and climate change and these kinds of things than conservatives would like, but also probably disappointing to liberals when he comes out and reminds them, well, I am Catholic and I am pro-life, and I do have views about gender confusion. So my guess is you're going to get things on both sides of the ledger, and at different times our political ideologies in the United States will be happy and sad. I try not to overly politicize these religious figures because I think they have a job to do, and ultimately it's good for America. We have an American Pope. I kind of hope he comes here and has a big rally in Chicago to demonstrate that the church is growing, the Catholic faith is growing, the Christian faith is growing. And I think it would be a great demonstration of Christian values if he came home and had a big gathering in Chicago to show people that, hey, there are people who are Christians, and it's okay to come out and celebrate your faith in such a way.
Well, we're awaiting him here. He's also a Villanova Wildcat. He's a Villanova grad.
Yes.
So we'll probably get some of that. We're talking with Scott Jennings about the news of the day. All right, the other stunner, I've interviewed her several times with books, and we were both once, Scott, if you can imagine, booked and together on the Montel Williams show. Judge Jeanine Pirro is going to be in the hot seat now, the D.C. prosecutor. The president moved away from Martin. Did that surprise you? He moved away from Martin because of objections of some Republican senators, and we tag in, I'm sure this will come up tonight on CNN, Jeanine Pirro.
Well, I was not surprised he moved away from Martin because it just became obvious the votes weren't there. And, that seat is too important. If they had let it lapse, I think that Judge Boasberg would have been able to appoint the replacement. So moving quickly was smart. That was pragmatic by the president to do. I'm disappointed for Ed. I know Ed a little bit, and he was briefly a contributor at CNN with me some years ago, so we've been friendly over the years. And now, all the people that decided they didn't like Ed, well, now you got Judge Pirro. And by the way, look, just take the names and the TV out of it. Look at the resume. Elected district attorney, elected judge, strong record on cracking down on violent crime, strong victims advocate record. My guess is she's got way more legal and prosecutorial experience than several of the U.S. attorneys that were appointed in the Biden administration, because they often appointed people who were just political risers and not actual intellect. So, look, it's the president's choice. She's got some experience. she's going to make all the right people mad, and sometimes that's the way I calibrate my thinking. So I'm going to give her a chance, and it's an interim, so we'll see if the president nominates her. But it's a really intriguing pick.
I wanted Rich's listeners to know too, though, and you and I have talked about this, that you are involved at various levels with the LA Times, which has really broken through with a different model of actually just telling the news. Now, their editorial page might be slightly different than it was in the past. What's your relationship? What do you do with the LA Times?
Well, I'm friendly with the owner, Patrick Soon-Shiong, and he asked me to serve on the editorial board, and he's still reformulating that and kind of deciding how that's going to work. In the meantime, I write columns for them from time to time, and I weigh in with him when he asks me questions. I'm really proud of what he's doing because, look, newspapers are supposed to be for everybody. You're supposed to be able to get the news and then go on the editorial page and see a broad spectrum of views that everybody could look at and say, this is a good debate, or this is for me, or I understand the other side's position now. And you want the news pages to reflect the news. I know it's breathtaking and groundbreaking to say that, but the news pages should reflect the news, and the opinion pages should reflect the opinions, and not just the opinions of one ideology or another. That's what he's trying to do there. I think it's admirable. I also think he's rolling out some multimedia offerings out of that paper in the coming weeks and months. I don't want to get ahead of it, but that's my understanding. And so he's trying to revitalize his hometown paper. And that shows, I think, a measure of civic pride in where you live, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Scott, you also have a podcast. I was honored you took one appearance with me that was on there. So people can see you not only on CNN, but where's the podcast?
It's called Flower Country with Scott Jennings. I will admit, I have been working on a super secret project the last few weeks, so I've taken a little time off from that. But the super secret project will be announced very soon, and you'll be able to find it out in the world, out there in the world where you buy things on Amazon and so on and so forth. But yes, some podcasting is done at Flower Country with Scott Jennings, and I need to record an episode because I've been working on this other thing, and now I'm at a point where I might be able to dedicate some more time to that. So I'll be getting back to that shortly.
And we can expect a book, I think you said, in the fall or before the end of the year?
I think it's highly likely you'll be able to give that to somebody for Christmas.
Very, very nice. Well, Scott, I can't tell you what you've done. I believe in competition. It makes every network better. And Abby Phillip and you together as the touchstones. And you have some people I know, Van Jones we've talked about. I've had on. I respect him, too. I just differ with him. And then you have some people just throwing grenades. That's where the fun comes in. And we'll see it again tonight at 10 o'clock. Do you know in advance fully, or is it some kind of uncharted territory, some of the topics?
You usually get some idea of what the topics are. They
Right.
do evolve throughout the evening. What you never quite know is how it's going to be framed, what clips they're going to play. And you should know, I have no script.
Of course.
I'm not reading anything off the teleprompter. I am literally in a live fire exercise with no script and no preordained direction. So what you see is a very authentic reaction to everyone else's arguments in the news of the day. So I'm sure tonight we'll be talking about the Pope and the trade deal and Judge Jeanine and so on and so forth. So it'll be a lively show.
Well, it's the Jennings look, though, that shrug or the eye roll or whatever. That's all natural. You can't practice that. But it's if I were on the other side, I'd say it's chilling to be looking at that. But they apparently don't get it. The nonverbals. Hey, Scott, have a great show tonight. And thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Dom, you're a great American. Thanks for having me.
All right, Scott Jennings here on the Rich Valdez Show. Here's how you get in. 833-482-5337, 833-482-5337. I have a lot to say about the Pope, and I am not happy with this choice. And whether you're a Catholic or not, you probably have heard some of the news today. If you are, right out of the box, you can tell us that. I am happy, and Scott Jennings added some meat to the bone with this first deal with the UK, and the media trying to just say, well, we had to make a deal. It's just on paper. Not so. It's a good deal. Now, it's only like a long field goal. It's not a touchdown yet. Let's get India. Let's get Japan, South Korea. But I believe by the end of next week, you're going to see a couple more biggies on board. I'll tell you what I think the president's big news coming up that we just talked about with Scott Jennings will be. But get in right now, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, it's Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia, sitting in for Rich tonight. And Scott Jennings is really up and coming. He's rumored. I didn't ask him, because it's out there that his big project. I think it's something else, to run for the Senate in Kentucky. If he does, I think President Trump would endorse him. I think he'd be our next senator, and I think he'd be tremendous. I'm selfish, though. I enjoy him too much as a frequent guest and also on CNN. It's just stunning. It's like bowling pins, how they line them up and knock them over. I mean, there's a couple people that are sort of heavyweights that can contend a little bit, but by and large, my God, it's fun to see it break down, and he's a fountain of great information. I learn more about the guy all the time. He just is a good guy and a really smart guy, and on his feet, very, very clever. You heard what he said about the UK deal. I don't share quite what he said about the Pope. I find this to be, I'm not going to say a disaster in the making yet, but I think it's getting pretty close to that. And I will lay that out for you coming up here on Rich's show. I'd love to hear from you, though, at 833-482-5337. You haven't heard me in for Rich since last year, I think. So I'm a big fan of I have a friend that works with him, Treasury Secretary Bessent. When President Trump has him out there publicly and is listening to him, everything is good. The crazy firm of Lutnick and Navarro, I'm not a fan of. So this is a big win today. Get this on the board. The media is going to try to diminish. It shows that we can move forward and make these deals. I would have rather have done much more of this before we take on China. But Bill O'Reilly, who's a friend, says that President Trump has always gotten ahead by shock and awe. Flood the zone. You can't flood the world economy. That's where the drawback, that's what got everybody nervous. But now that we're seeing these deals, and this is a very good one to build on, you're going to see much more buy-in. You're going to see a lot more going on. So can't wait to talk with you. I'll play you Bernie Sanders on the other side, why he flies private jets. 833-482-5337. You're listening to America at Night on Westwood One.
Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, catchy music. I may have to get that somewhere and have it in Philadelphia. Welcome in. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich. 833-4 Valdez. You heard Scott Jennings lay it down. At least among voters, about 26%, 25.5% in most elections are Catholic in one way or another. 1.4 billion people around the globe. The Pope today is on social media, has been on social media, and is very problematic. He, of course, this idea that the Pope, the headline, the brand that this conclave put out. By the way, I'd love to hear from you now that you've seen this play out. I did see the film Conclave. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to give you specifics. If you didn't, and you might want to see it now, you never know the ending, but it was a bad ending of a great film, because I believe that's exactly what these guys do, what we saw in the Conclave, which is that it is incredibly, incredibly political. And I'm a Catholic. It's incredibly political. In addition to that, the wrapper is, this is the brand American Pope. Now, he was born in Chicago, but he went to Peru. He sees himself as Peruvian, and he got dual citizenship. When I heard that today, that's it. I mean, I just don't believe in that. I don't care if it's the Pope or who it is. No dual citizenship. That's ridiculous. Well, he's in Peru. He said, you know what? Priests go there. People go there all the time. They keep their American citizenship. Well, all he did was add to it. No, there's no adding to it. American citizenship, being born in this country legally, is the greatest gift that you could be given. Think about it. The greatest gift that you could be given. You hit the lottery right there at birth. You hit it. No matter who the president is, no matter, what difficulty we're having, there is nothing like it in the history of the world. So why fool around with that and try to add to that with Peru? And then the social media going back and forth with J.D. Vance, who is a converted Catholic, around the issue of Vance essentially saying the doctrine of charity begins at home and then extends out. And this was America First, the world. J.D. Vance is exactly right. And I believe if this Pope, then Cardinal, had to, or all of them had to debate Vance, they would lose easily. So, there's upsides. I hear that he's a humble and sensitive man, all good. But immediately I hear the climate stuff. I remember the moment I'm reading the encyclical of Pope Francis, and the Pope started attacking air conditioning. Yeah, because of climate. So I think that this Pope will be an extension. They more wanted Latin America, but they love the idea of saying he is the first American Pope. That is quite a twofer. So 833, the number for Valdez. And you heard Jeanine Pirro now being the D.C. attorney, which is a very prominent thing. Lena Haba is the New Jersey U.S. attorney. The president's, I guess she still is personal attorney, doing that. So President Trump is putting into play people. I mean, Judge Jeanine does have a resume that is tremendous, but you can imagine the vitriol that is building with this. And she'll be in the center ring on any number of things right there in the nation's capital. So certainly a lot to talk about. 833, the number for Valdez. Now, in the middle of this, we lead off tonight with some sound. Senator Bernie Sanders, he was here in Philadelphia last week, and on my show on Talk Radio 1210, it was good enough that I got on the host of Bernie Sanders, the tour, the oligarch tour, the head of the AFL-CIO, and I was surprised that they would bring this guy in. He hijacked their event in Philadelphia on May Day of all days. So Brett Baer has Bernie on, and he's asking him a simple question. How can you be talking about billionaires and yada, 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 and you're flying around the country constantly talking about climate and everything else on private jets? It must be nice. Here's how it sounded with Bernie.
Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, she said you shouldn't be using oligarch. It's over people's head. You've gotten criticized from other people. Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour, paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years. How do you push back on both of those things?
When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport?
No. It doesn't. But he's also not fighting the oligarchy.
No. You run a campaign and you do 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
Yeah, that's it, buddy. We're progressives. You're not going to tell us anything. Well, these two things, Mr. Sanders, Senator Sanders, are at odds. No, they're not. We'll do whatever we want, and that's it. My goodness, it just reeks of it. We're not even arguing first class. We're talking about ultra, private jets and all. AOC, the same thing. And then lecture to these nitwits about how America is, and Bernie, of course, has 3 homes. When he came to Philadelphia, I took a look at this. Their value is approaching $3 million. Why do you need 3 homes, Bernie? One of them is only a quarter of a mile, if that, from right there on Capitol Hill. In Washington. Another is his summer home, and then he have his home in Vermont. Boy, that doesn't sound very egalitarian, does it? Well, what do you mean? They're setting the AFL-CIO guy, when I had him on, said, well, we're just against the billionaires. So now it's just the billionaires, not 100 millionaires, not $500 million. Well, how about burning the private planes? Well, what do you expect him to do? How can he get out there and spread this gospel if he can't violate the gospel by flying on private jets? What about the climate part of it? There's like 4 people aboard this plane. That doesn't make any sense. All right, so 833, the number 4, Valdez. That's how you get on board. It's a big news day. I got something special, too, in the third hour tonight here on the Rich Valdez America at Night show. And we have Jeanine Pirro. We have the UK deal, and it's not so much about the UK. What I think the president's going to announce is the big thing he's been teasing is Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords, which recognizes Israel. Now, I don't think the Trump base is going to go gaga over that, but if you think about the entire history back thousands of years or more, Saudi Arabia and Israel, no way. And if Saudi Arabia, Abraham Accords, recognizes them, that's a big step forward. This is what Trump does. He sees something and puts together deals that nobody else would conceive of. I'm concerned that the Republicans are not conceiving in the big, beautiful bill. They're doing stuff like they're trying to gain power, some of these Republican congressmen. 3 or 4 of them are saying, one of them in my neck of the woods, Brian Fitzpatrick, in Bucks County near Philadelphia, they're joining together to have power, saying, nope, they will not sign off on defunding Planned Parenthood. I think Americans that voted for Trump wanted to fund Planned Parenthood. You have another gaggle of them that are in states like Massachusetts and New York and California and Illinois, where they're brutally taxed. You may be one of them. They want the salt tax cap to be raised. That's the state and local tax. I don't think we ought to do that. Democrats, progressives will just tax more. Another group of them doesn't want to touch in any way, shape, or form Medicaid. They're afraid if you touch Medicaid. Now, where I am in Philadelphia, Delaware County touches Philadelphia. It's just outside Philadelphia. It's middle class as you come. 22%, it came out this week, of people in Delaware County just outside Philadelphia are on Medicaid. 22%. So there's got to be some things done with Medicaid. Trump is going to sign an executive order that will really negotiate through Medicare and Medicaid very hard against Big Pharma. You're going to see that. Republicans don't have that in the bill. They don't want to do it. He's having to do it through an executive order. So we got a lot that's happening tonight. Love to get you on board at 833, the number 4, Valdez. I'll give you more on the Pope coming up. This is a big move, more of Pope Francis, whether you're Catholic or not. And this tariff deal today. Does that calm you down? Does that make you think there's a method to the madness? I don't like the way it was rolled out, but we are where we are now. And at this point, we got something on the board to build on. All right, Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. for Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833 for Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
Yeah, do that now. Welcome Dom Giordano back in, sitting for Rich. Big family milestone for Rich tonight. He'll be back with you on Monday. Everything's good, and I'm always thrilled to have a chance to sit in for one of America's great and rising talk show hosts in Rich. The Pope, a lot of stuff to unpack. This guy, I actually use this guy named Josh Barton that has betting odds and everything. A lot of them are fun. And he had odds on how many times the conclave would meet, odds on would the Pope be under 70. He is, so youth, if you can imagine, in this Pope. But this is, in my mind, a knockoff of Pope Francis. And I'm tired of hearing about migrants and the Pope also going after President Trump, the usual stuff, meanness, tweeting about stuff. Can't you see the harm and damage that's out there? We've seen all this, but no nation that does not sustain its borders, as we've seen Trump in just a really short period of time do, can be successful. It's not a nation. We've been overrun. Biden today on The View with Dr. Jill Biden, President Biden, and when asked about his mental acuity, that question that is so obvious, Dr. Jill Biden had to jump into the ring to explain mental acuity. Well, this is all part of the problem, that it was obvious for a long period of time, I would say, even when he was running and hiding in the basement in 2020. Look at today, the split screen, Biden on The View, unable to finish a sentence that Dr. Jill did not have to jump in and engage in, and President Trump cutting a deal with the UK and moving the ball forward on tariffs. All right, let me go to Paul in Idaho here on Talk Radio 1210. Hey, Paul, welcome to America at Night.
Thanks for calling on me. I appreciate it. Rich is a heck of a guy.
Absolutely. One of our favorites.
He's a stalwart. He's there just about every night unless something comes up like what he has with his family.
Yep, I admire that a lot. Yep. So what's on your mind, Paul?
Well, I think the tariffs is a really good start for Trump as far as out of the gate and making a deal is concerned. I've heard some talk today by other people that they said they thought maybe China should be the first one out of the gate. I think once you see the backlog that Trump's got laid out to come forth and sign on the dotted line, I think China will kind of get the hint that maybe we need to make a deal with them.
China's going to take a little longer. China has the ability, they have some edge on us in certain areas. So I think we need to pile on a few more. But you're right. What we're going to see is India, Japan, and these others after today. They're going to be eager to be the next one, knowing that if you don't act soon, your deal is not going to be as good. Thank you, Paul. Thanks very much. So it's a big thing. I would make it a long field goal at a critical part of an NFL game was put up on the board today. China is going to be, and I think Americans support Trump taking on China. The difficulty here was it was scattershot in the beginning. I told you the theory of O'Reilly and others. That's what President Trump does. Can't do it with the world economy, but now we've righted the ship. We have this on board, and we're moving forward on the next big deal. When those happened, it will suddenly be in that week a sea of them are going to come through. And then I think everything will be settled down economically, and then the battle with China is underway. And we're going to see whether we really want all that cheap stuff versus having to rely on them for our medical supplies. To me, that was one of my top 5 things we learned in COVID. You may have known, I did not know how dependent we were on China for medical supplies. All right, we round off this hour here at America at Night. You can get in at 833, the number 4, Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, it's Dom Giordano. D-O-M with an M, not an N. No Don. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight here at America at Night. 833, the number 4, Valdez. I want to also talk about Real ID. We're in Philadelphia when this comes up. Only about, I think, 26% of people in Pennsylvania got the Real ID by the deadline. They're given a grace period. You get enhanced scrutiny, but you can still fly, although it might be a bit iffy. My advice in Pennsylvania was, and I had on a state official, the treasurer in Pennsylvania, who said, well, if you're going to have to fly imminently, maybe you should try to get a passport, but you don't have to kill yourself. It's been nuts to get the Real ID, which is a bad idea that was concocted 21 years ago. And all it does is make the average American go through more hoops, I don't think, protecting us from terrorists or anything else. So whatever state you're in, there are varying degrees. In New Jersey, I think only 17% of people ended up getting the Real ID by the deadline. So I'll get into that and some of the things that are troublesome with it, including having to go through these bureaucrats for another hurdle, having to pay more. I'm taking a group of listeners to Sicily in the fall and using a passport. Getting stuck in the motor vehicle in Pennsylvania, I mean, it's been nightmarish. And then you're told you don't have the documents and the like. So not a good idea. But boy, what a playing field tonight. Judge Jeanine Pirro, headed to be the top prosecutor in D.C., right in the heart of the action. And the 5 is just a miracle on Fox. The numbers sometimes are the most watched show in cable TV. In fact, I think they might be the most. And it's at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So you really don't want to fool with the chemistry there. But Judge Jeanine has always wanted to be back in the fray. And this is a big spot. There's going to be a lot of action there, being the U.S. attorney in Washington. You can think about it, the number of cases, the things that are still ongoing. Kash Patel squaring off with Madeline Dean, a congresswoman from the suburbs where I'm in, yesterday, still on the J6 stuff and related stuff. So big stuff there. We got the Pope, Judge Jeanine moving in, and the first of hopefully many tariffs. All right, my name is Dom Giordano, sitting in for Rich Valdez on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
All right, Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia. Always a thrill. Rich has a big family milestone that he's celebrating. All's well, and he will be back on Monday night. It gives me the opportunity to sit in for a great show. And you can join us at 833, the number 4 Valdez. Huge news stories today. Stuff that's just moving the needle across the board. Want to play you, if you missed it, the Bidens were on The View. Dr. Jill Biden and Joe Biden, president. And, of course, the ladies on The View. It is stunning, what is it, 26 years or 25 and a half, I don't know, that this show still goes forward. And if you sit where I do, it was obvious. Biden is called the third senator from Pennsylvania. He's been in Philadelphia a lot, where I am. And he's always been one of the slower with it, in my view, public officials. But the obvious nature, and I'm not even talking last November or the debate when he blew up. I'm talking for the last few years, at least, that this guy was not running the country, was not president. Was it Dr. Jill Biden? Was it the auto pen with some Obama advisors, and that could be criminal activity, running the country? But it certainly was not Biden. You don't need to have 50 books out there. The media was in the tank. So the first, they did the BBC. That was a policy thing that President Biden did yesterday. Today was The View, though, the main event. And other than the gushing and attacking Trump and, oh, God, could you have won? Can you imagine? They asked President Biden, or at least Dr. Jill Biden, about the mental acuity part. And today, Biden just said, I've spoken enough. He spoke for like 10 seconds on this. Then he says, I've spoken enough. And Dr. Jill Biden jumps into the ring again, exactly proving the point what she's been doing here. Here's how some of this sounded with the former Trump spokesperson, who's now anti-Trump, alleged Republican, Alyssa Farah, raising the question with Dr. Jill Biden and the mental acuity charges and how Dr. Jill answered it. Here's how it sounded.
Shirley, you are your husband's fiercest advocate and a close advisor, and it's been reported that you created a sort of cocoon around him and kind of limited his interactions with the media and others. Do you think you could have been too close to the situation to objectively gauge whether he could handle a full 4 more years?
I was with Joe day and night. I saw him more than any other person. I woke up with him. I went to bed at night with him. So I saw him all throughout the day, and I did not create a cocoon around him. I mean, you saw him in the Oval Office. You saw him making speeches. He wasn't hiding somewhere. I didn't have him, sequestered in some place. I mean, that's
Wish
ridiculous.
he had.
Was that hurtful to you when they were describing you as Lady Macbeth and all of
Yes,
those?
it was very hurtful. It was very hurtful, especially from some of our so-called friends.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Look, we see what happened. Sometimes you kick it up and you stand up. The greatest thing is that you then the next day went to the G4. You went all these other places. What am I incorrect?
G20. But you said G4. I think that's a jet. Could have been on one.
What difference?
I know it's a G.
Can you imagine? I've often said, how in the world does this show represent females? In fact, I was doing at Talk Radio 1210 a little sideshow called The Clue. Get it? Instead of The View, that women had a clue, and I had smart women on debating the issues of the day. Here we go again. Now, why is this important? Well, you can imagine Democrats taking a beating. Do they want Joe Biden out there? Absolutely no. It brings up all of this. I would like the Bidens, Jasmine Crockett, and maybe a few other Democrats on a constant tour. We fund them. Remind America every day what they're about. Can you just imagine? She is Lady Macbeth jumping into the ring. She wanted to be there. They would have done anything to stay there. And she mentioned their alleged friends, Nancy Pelosi and some others, who finally had enough, not for the good of the country, but because they were going to lose power. And they said, oh, man, all we have on the bench. Imagine you see a guy who's cooked, a ball player, right? And then you look down the bench and all you got is Kamala Harris. And you still decide you're going to put Kamala Harris in. That's pretty bad. That's the judgment of Democrats. We saw it during the debate. Everybody saw it well before then. Dr. Jill Biden is a shameful figure, without a doubt. Now, he apparently still wanted to do it. Who knows? He seems to be more absentee with this. This is the most demanding job. And think of the split screen today. President Trump, the UK deal on the tariff, and then the Bidens. Joe Biden saying, I've spoken enough, after he didn't say anything on this question. Not Dr. Jill Biden, though. So it indicates more. She's telling you, yeah, she's doing all this stuff. You saw him in the Oval Office. What are you talking about? And the media continuing with the Tapper book coming out in a couple weeks. Tapper knew. He didn't say that much about it. None of them did. It's outrageous. They want to do a book about it now, rather than saying something as everybody saw during all this. So why continue it? Because the more they're out there, the more that we see this, the more it makes the point, the contrast that's there. The more we see how hollow this is and the damage this man did. You remember inflation. You remember what he did. You remember the border. We're still trying to clean that up. 15 million people maybe let in, thereabouts. The damage is incredible. And Dr. Jill Biden is right there leading this on, cheering this on, right in the center of it. All right, it is 833, the number 4, Valdez. If you're unable to get in the first hour, we had Scott Jennings on. Great stuff. We talked about the Pope. My take on the Pope is that this is a reasonable facsimile of Pope Francis. This guy has been on social media, unlike a lot of these cardinals. Maybe where you are, if you have a cardinal, archbishop, bishop, Catholic or not too many of them are usually on social media. This guy was jousting, going after President Trump, retweeting stuff. I've been to the Vatican. I took listeners there on a trip to Italy a few years back. The artwork alone could be worth $500 billion to $1 trillion. They have walls at the Vatican. And yet, and I'm a Catholic, we hear from them, the migrants. We hear this again. And this new pope got into it with J.D. Vance. All J.D. Vance said was a doctrine that says the most charitable stuff starts at home. This guy wanting to fight and reject that, this pope. Plus, I don't know how he's an American pope. Yes, he was born in Chicago. But he's mainly a Latin American pope, Peruvian, and he took on Peruvian citizenship. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not a believer in dual citizenship. It's disgraceful. Being an American citizen is something that is beyond the gold card, platinum, call it what you will, one of a kind, that you get bequeathed when you're born in this country. And to say, well, I'm in Peru, I'm going to take on Peruvian like it's a buffet line or something, it doesn't work. So I think the people in the Vatican, the conclave, they were looking at a twofer here. We get Francis, and we're going to sell it as an American pope. Isn't that wonderful? And we're going to use that to try to revitalize where Americans are. And no, we don't have to say, well, don't you have to give him all this period of time? I'm looking at his writings. I'm looking at his tweeting. I'm looking at his challenging, and I've had enough of it on the border issue. I would love to ask the Pope about Laken Riley and the Morans and others. I'd like to ask them about that. That's what should be brought up. Now, his personality, apparently people say he's a humble and sensible man. That's great. But what we care about with the Pope are the policies and the influence around that. Apparently, he voted once in a Republican primary. But, of course, his take on Trump and Vance is to go after them. And this is on social media. I don't have to guess at it. It's ridiculous. And the citizenship stuff is equally ridiculous. All right, let's go to Bo in Joplin, Missouri. Bo, okay, let's go to Sid in L.A. Hey, Sid, welcome to America at Night. Hi. Go ahead, Sid. All right. Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Bo. All right. We reload. 833, the number 4, Valdez, V-A-L-D-E-S, Rich Valdez Show. Rich, as I said, has the night off. Big family milestone he's celebrating. He will be back on Monday night. But I'd love to get you on board. This is huge news anytime we have a pope. And I was kind of surprised it was today. I thought it would last until tomorrow, the white smoke, the whole deal with it. And what power does the Pope have? Well, in America, it's dwindling, but around the world, it's 1.4 billion Catholics. I don't know what the Muslim faith is around the world, but I'm not sure it's a billion. It might be. That's about the only rival. And there is the power of the pulpit. There is the power associated with all that. We'll talk about that. We have Jeanine Pirro now as the new U.S. attorney. Where else? In Washington, D.C. That's going to be active. All right, it's 833, the number 4, Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, welcome in, everyone. Dom Giordano with you, sitting in for Rich. And again, 833, the number 4, Valdez. The new Pope. Here's a little bit of the Pope and some of the things he believes in. I more go by, this is the first guy that I remember at this level that actually, I believe, was running his own Twitter and was engaging on Twitter, retweeting, going after Trump, going after Vance, versus others who I don't think usually, many of these big religious figures, engage in that. And it tells me really all I need to know of what we're going to hear, a reasonable facsimile of a Pope who I believe was a disaster, a socialist at least, maybe a Marxist, and did a lot of damage. I don't know that this Pope is going to write an encyclical in which he attacks air conditioning. That was early on with Pope Francis. And he was more dangerous because I think he lived a simple life, that's true, and he was somebody able to reach out to the crowds. You can see right before he died, he still went through Rome. All true. But the bottom line is, what's the policy? What's the teaching? What are they engaged in? Who are they challenging? They're challenging Trump and Vance. I don't see any record of the new Pope challenging Biden, Pelosi, and these other alleged Catholics on the issue of life. If you can run as a devout Catholic and also run as an abortion extremist, that is a great path to go. Here's a little bit of the Pope and what he's all about.
Here now is what we know about Pope Leo XIV and where he stands on some key issues in the church. He's been against ordaining female deacons. He has been somewhat ambiguous on blessing same-sex couples. He's been in favor of making the church structure more inclusive and participatory. He supported Pope Francis' change in allowing divorced and civilly remarried Catholics to receive communion.
All right, so this is all inside baseball with the Catholic Church. I don't know why Will came. The broader thing people care about with the Pope is not that. That's sort of for Catholics, and it's inside the faith, etc. It's more about the impact of the Pope that goes beyond the Catholic Church, the role as that voice out there that the left and progressives can cite, particularly when they give cover to Democrats like Biden and Pelosi and attack Catholics like Vance and people like President Trump. That's the real importance. The other stuff, I think, is only for Catholics somewhat, maybe not even. Now, he took Pope Leo XIV, and it's kind of curious because Pope Leo XIII, and my sense is this is the signal he's giving, was and wanted to be known as a social justice warrior, as the social justice Pope. In other words, woke. And that's where I think we're headed in this circumstance. And again, this is a bad place to be. Now, if you're not a Catholic, maybe you believe the Pope only has limited power. Stalin famously probably said, how many divisions does the Pope have? But you know, the Pope is the number one figure that I can think of. When you say the Pope, most people know who you're talking about around the world as a religious figure. And they're going to cite him, particularly if he's a lefty, as I think this Pope clearly is, as the source to go after those mean, cold-hearted conservatives and Republicans, and to try to say that Jesus Christ essentially would have been very similar to what these guys are talking about, with the migrants, with the thing that, hey, if you're on the left, you're golden. You announce that you're for the poor, even if you're like Bernie Sanders and have 3 homes and fly around on private jets, you're good because you want to rob money from the middle class for all these schemes. If you oppose that, then you're a bad person. And the thing that troubles me the most with the migrant thing, if you remember the most controversial time, arguably, of President Trump's first term involved the alleged family separation. Remember that? People storming the border, claiming birthright citizenship, all that. It happened with President Obama. Trump and Obama dealt with it pretty much the same way. But the bishop of Tucson went to the bishops' conference and said maybe we should excommunicate any Catholics that are the border people handling this. Now, if you're not a Catholic, what this means, if you get excommunicated, it's essentially saying you're going to hell at that point in your life unless you renounce and give up being a border agent for Trump. Now, picture this. Big-time abortion, Biden, Pelosi, Kerry, Kennedy's, any number of Catholics. The Bishop of Tucson not concerned with that. But what he was concerned with were Catholics that were enforcing the border policy under President Trump. Let's tell them they're in danger of or could be excommunicado, meaning that's it, buddy, you're out. And if you die now, that's what's going to happen to you. That's how far this type of nonsense goes. America rejected it in the last election. It will be interesting because of the branding that this is an American Pope, that's the headline. Will American Catholics now fall in line with what I think is gibberish? And imagine this guy, there's a pretty lengthy social media footprint pushing back on Trump and then recently on J.D. Vance, who's brilliant and right. Charity does begin at home. It doesn't mean you can't be charitable beyond that, but the main focus is at home. All right, my name is Dom Giordano. I'm sitting in for Rich Valdez on America at Night on Westwood One.
Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Hey, it's Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight here at America at Night. Rich has the night off. Big family milestone. He'll be back. Everything's good with us on Monday on America at Night. All right. The Epstein thing is out there again today. Kash Patel, the new FBI director, I'll play you a little bit later, duked it out with a congresswoman from my area over January 6th and related things. She's insufferable, Madeleine Dean. But he also got into it in the Senate over Epstein again. I did an event the other night with my radio station, and with all the news in the world, people are still on the Epstein thing. And it is true. Pam Bondi teased it. We're going to release this, that, and the other. Patel apparently said he believed that Epstein did kill himself, and that has people still going down this trail. For people, conspiracy is just all they want around the clock. I think Patel is not in the tank on this. But we'll see if this continues and if Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, where the ball is, does release more on the Epstein files. All right, let's go to Walter in St. Augustine, Florida, here on America at Night. Walter, thanks for the wait. Go right ahead.
Hi, Mr. Giordano. I have a true story for you I'd like to share with you. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
Good. When I was stationed on Adak Island in the Aleutian Islands in 1972 as a radio man, there was a radio man master chief there named Rizzo. And one day he received a package from home with salami, being Italian. Mm-hmm. And I shared this with the chief Rizzo, and he told me he was from Philadelphia. And he said his cousin was the police commissioner, and his other cousin was the fire chief.
That's right.
Yeah, and in 1974, I got stationed on the Philly base, at the end of Broad Street. And guess who was the mayor? And guess who was the fire commissioner at the time? I think it's a small world,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the greatest Philadelphians, Frank Rizzo. Certainly one of the famous of all time. And Walter, just so you know, on my show, we still play Rizzo drop-ins. Even though he passed away umpteen years ago, it still connects with people. And they took away this giant statue of Frank Rizzo from Center City during the George Floyd summer. They set it on fire, and then they placed it in a museum. And tomorrow it's coming back, and they're going to reveal on my show where they're going to place it. It's just another example of the culture wars coming off that George Floyd summer. But thank you for that, Walter. Thanks for the call tonight here on America at Night. Yeah, the George Floyd summer in Philadelphia, Frank Rizzo was a gigantic figure, police commissioner. He's the guy, if you remember, one of the most famous photos. I want to talk photos later on. The Pulitzer Prize was won by a photographer in live frames who captured a series of events when President Trump was shot in the ear in Butler. I think the guy who had the iconic photo better rather than the series should have won. That's the one of Trump with blood coming out of the ear, standing with the Secret Service and raising his fist up as he's carried off, not on the stretcher, but walking, saying, fight, fight, fight. All right? So we'll talk photos a little bit later, but the famous Rizzo statue is Rizzo was the police commissioner or was he the mayor? A little unclear. And there was a riot at a housing project in South Philly. He shows up there. He came from a formal dinner in tuxedo and this giant cummerbund. He was a big man. And as he's there in the middle of the riot taking control, he puts a giant nightstick inside the cummerbund. Now, you can just imagine, picture any mayor in America walking around in the tuxedo, and he's got the nightstick for action in the cummerbund of the tuxedo. That's iconic. That was Frank Rizzo, a figure that today would have been a little bit out of step as far as big city mayors. All right, 833, the number 4, Valdez, gets you to me. President Trump has, and I find this to be part of the Trump coalition, which is very, very different than any coalition we've ever seen. Today, he got rid of the person they were going to put in for Surgeon General. I didn't think she was Trumpian at all. She was on Fox News for years as a medical expert. And he tagged in Casey Means. Casey Means is very plugged in with RFK Jr. and is seen as a MAHA, Make America Healthy Again movement leader for Surgeon General. And here's the weird coalition. A lot of these moms, now some of them go too far, but a lot of them, wanting the best for their kids, are very concerned. And when RFK Jr. sticks to the lane of what's in our foods and the dyes and all the other processed stuff and trying to get them out, I think he's very effective. The MAHA women went with Trump. Now, they're wild cards. They could have gone with anyone. So RFK Jr. pulled in this whole group, and he is delivering for them. And this woman now is Surgeon General. I a couple of weeks ago, broadcast from the White House. and it was on the 100-day stuff, even though it wasn't the 100-day. We were there. And the day before, RFK Jr. and Marty McCary, you probably have heard him on Rich's show over the years, I would bet. A lot on my show in Philadelphia, was made the head of the FDA, and this woman called the Food Babe. These were two lieutenants, if you will, of RFK Jr. were my guest the day after he made the big announcements of taking out dyes and others in this calendar year. So this is a big deal, and tagging in this woman as Surgeon General is another signal to the Maha movement. And some of the stuff I think is over the line. I'm not going to endorse all of it. I've had them on the show, and we jousted over some things, mainly maybe the vaccines at various levels, is a big thing. It's a big part of the Trump coalition. And the Trump coalition is populist. Trump is not going to want to go anywhere near cutting Medicaid, even though I think there are reasons to be cutting able-bodied men that are on Medicaid. It's ridiculous. And instead, they're looking at savings through taking on big pharma, which I'm on board with, on drug prices, a la Canada or something like that. In other words, President Trump is a populist more than a conservative, even though conservative on the issues of crime and the border, etc. It's a melange. It's a mix. And this group, the Maha group, is a real good example of it. Can any other Republican do that? I don't think so. I think after Trump, we better have these policies in place, because you're not going to see anybody that can trigger the sort of connection with the base that President Trump has. And the midterms are not going to be decided as much on policy, although the tariffing thing and all the stuff that's going on here is good. They're going to be decided, can Trump convince the base to come out and vote, or I would say to vote by mail-in ballot in advance, as we've done here in Pennsylvania or tried to do. That's going to be the tell as far as maintaining the House and the Senate. Well, it'll keep the Senate, but increasing the margin and keeping the House, which could be pretty difficult. Will Trump voters that show up, they can't wait to vote for Trump, will they get the message? That's not good enough. You have to vote in every election. If you don't, Democrats take over in the House. Not only will they impeach Trump, that's small potatoes, but they will shut down every part of the agenda imaginable. Even with executive orders, it'll be a pitch battle. You're going to have trouble getting a lot done. We already have trouble in the Senate with a lot of those Republicans that are there. So that's why the midterms are going to be a huge deal. All right, 833, the number 4, Valdez. The Pope, interesting figure. More Pope Francis, I think, than not, with the banner, American Pope. You know, and I think The Conclave is a great movie. If you've seen it, I'd love to hear from you. It did very good box office. I think Ralph Fiennes should have won the Academy Award. I didn't like the end. There were several things. They spoiled a really good movie. And I think the movie pretty much replicates what goes on in the conclave. Now, I've had people that are devout Catholics calling me, angered at me, a Catholic too, saying that's attacking the church. That's not what they do. That's exactly what they do. And what they chose in this Pope was somebody who is the Latin American liberation theology Pope Francis guy, but with the better wrapper, the front story of being, quote, an American that took on dual citizenship. I'm not on board with that when he went to Peru. Did grow up in Chicago, went to school, apparently had a Costco account at one point, or still might. I'm not sure how that worked. But there's troubling signs of more like Pope Francis than not. All right, here's how you get in with Dom, D-O-M. Dom Giordano from Philadelphia, sitting in for Rich, 833, the number 4, Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5790. 833-4-VALDEZ-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, it's Dom with an M, D-O-M, sitting in for Rich tonight. Rich, big family milestone celebrating. Congratulations to Rich and the family. And everything's good on Rich's front. And he'll be back here on Monday night with you on America at Night. I'm really happy. And it's a dream night for a talk show host. How often do we get a new pope, particularly a pope who I think is pretty controversial if you really follow this stuff, and the first big tariff deal, and Jeanine Pirro going to be the prosecutor in Washington, D.C., and a number of other little things that we talked about. Let's go to Barbara, though, in the Pope's hometown. I'm sure they're going to have parades in Chicago. Barbara, welcome to America at Night. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much. So, like you, yes, I'm from Chicago, and of course, I think it would normally be thrilling for me to be able to say that, wow, we have a pope from the Chicago area. However, I will have to agree with you that, I'm not thrilled by this choice. I'm concerned, but for different reasons than you point out. So here in Chicago, many of us have been fighting our church closures here, and including us with a very historic Polish church on the south side of Chicago, where a lot of parishes that have been fighting their church closures filed appeals in the Vatican courts. I'm aware of probably over 100 churches with parishioner groups that were not happy with their church closures, and they filed, legal cases in the Vatican courts. And what is really sort of startling and sort of jarring to learn is that every single one of these court cases in the Vatican was denied. But yet when there are churches around the country who also file appeals based on the same grounds, some of these cases have been won. And one of the things that we've been, that we've heard through a variety of sources is that our cardinal here in Chicago had Pope Francis's ear and had a lot of influence with the Vatican. And so nobody in the Vatican court really wanted to challenge this cardinal. And so I was really hoping for a cardinal that would be different. I see that the size of the Catholicism that are growing, for example, Catholicism is growing in Africa.
Right.
I also see that our youth are gravitating towards the traditional side of Catholicism, which includes the Latin Mass that Pope Francis got rid of. And so I don't understand why, if we should be evangelizing, and the Latin Mass is the oldest Mass in the Catholic Church, why would we get rid of it when newcomers, especially the youth, are gravitating towards it? And so for this reason, I was really hoping for somebody that was different than Francis, more of a traditionalist, perhaps somebody from Africa. I was praying for Cardinal Sarah. I think he would have been an excellent choice. But yet it seems that we're ending up with somebody that is along the lines of Francis, and yet a pope that is going to give our cardinal here in Chicago continued access, and so we are worried for our churches here.
Barbara, you sound like a very devout Catholic. As a former altar boy, I agree with you. The Latin Mass, et conspiri 220. Absolutely. Thank you, Barbara, very much. So, the Latin Mass, not a small thing. Only about 4% of Catholics attend Latin Masses. Is this in the weeds? No, you may remember the FBI. Who were they investigating that were Catholics? And, Kash Patel, I like a lot about him. I want to get to the bottom of the Richmond office of the FBI. Why in the world were they bothering devout Catholics? Latin Mass was the tell in the Richmond area, and maybe they were going to do it across the country. Remember surveilling them, taking down license plates. They're radicals if they want that Latin Mass. It's not for everybody. It's a beautiful thing. And I remember as an altar boy, that was one of the catchphrases. All right, you get in just as Barbara did. 833, the number for Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, it's Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich. Let's squeeze Josephine in New York in here. Hey, Josephine, welcome to America at Night. What do you have today?
Oh, I was just listening to you about the dual citizenship, and I'm 86 years old. I distinctly remember being taught in school you could not have dual American citizenship with any other country. And the only thing that I do remember is Congress giving Churchill an honorary citizenship.
Yes.
But you couldn't hold dual citizenship when I was young.
Well,
I
the
don't know when it
yeah.
changed.
No, I don't know, Josephine, on that. That it has, but by every news publication out there, he had dual citizenship.
Yes, I know the term is used constantly now, but I distinctly remember being taught you could not, you had to disavow other citizenships before you could take the oath.
We're going to be talking about that since that's much in play. Thanks for the clarification, Josephine. Look, I am opposed to this. You know, I've had some people on my wife's side of the family saying, oh, they'd like to be, and they were actually looking at it, an American citizen and an Italian citizen. No, you got to stop this stuff. There's a reason why Josephine's right. You got the lottery. You stick with the lottery. I don't want to hear any of this dual citizenship. It's a tell with this Pope in a manner. And I'm going to be interested and maybe develop this a little bit more. What's it going to be like when this Pope goes to Chicago, where he was born? Is he going to lecture the people in Chicago who've had it, being inundated with the so-called, in quote, migrants? Think about what's happened in Chicago, particularly in African-American, Hispanic neighborhoods. They're in revolt against the progressive agenda there, including the, quote, migrants that were sent by Governor Abbott to Denver and there and somewhat to Philadelphia and New York and the Dolans of the world. It's going to be very interesting to see when he goes home. All right, my name is Dom Giordano, sitting in for Rich Valdez on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Yes, that's exactly right. America at Night. Rich has a night off. Big family milestone, I'm told. Everything going great on the home front. And Rich will be back with us on Monday here on America at Night. Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia, pinch hitting tonight. I'll play you local congresswoman. Her name is Madeline Dean. I call her the Dean of Decency. I'll explain why. Trying to grill Kash Patel yesterday. Just the endless attack on Patel is one of the leading figures they're going after. We have Jeanine Pirro, Judge Jeanine, now the new prosecutor in Washington, D.C. That's going to be a cauldron, the center of the action there, because she'll make charging recommendations on an area that has been, it's the worst in the country, arguably, of hostility toward President Trump. And we have the new Pope. One other thing, though. This week was the Pulitzer Prizes that went out, and the live-action photos were particularly, I'm a big fan of some of the iconic photos. The winner was a guy who had a series of photos of President Trump being shot in Butler, including the bullet kind of whizzing by that missed. And the guy who I thought should have won the more compelling photo was Trump, surrounded by the Secret Service, though, raising his fist, fight, 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 blood gushing down from the ear. I thought that was the winner, although it was close. I mean, the others were compelling, too. So I thought I'd throw into the mix on the news of the day, which is huge, as we see this win this week. Photos, all-time photos, and, of course, May 8th, Victory in Europe Day. I'm not sure that the celebrations were as intense as VJ Day, Victory over Japan, which ended everything, you can imagine. But my photo, my all-time photo, and there's actually a statue of it if you ever happen to be in Sarasota, Florida, is the photo that captures the joy, I believe, the innocence of an age that I don't think can be beaten in my mind, is the all-time great photo. And think of the ones you're thinking. You can call in at 833, the number 4 Valdez. It's the kiss. The kiss in Madison Square Garden, in Times Square, as crowds dwindled with the announcement on May 8th, Victory in Europe. And that must have felt like a lot of them. Who knows? Well, maybe not, though, at that point. I don't know how Americans were thinking, because we didn't know about the atomic bomb. And President Trump, by the way, wants to deeply celebrate that. We don't celebrate those 2 days enough. I don't know, celebrating the end of World War I, not exactly entranced by that, you know. Our involvement was more, not as direct. But celebrating these 2 days as the crowds dwindled. This guy who was in the Navy kisses this woman who looks to be a nurse. But again, a sign of the times then. People dress more formally. She was a dental hygienist. They didn't know each other. Idiots are saying it's sexual assault. Oh, my God. It's innocence. It's great. It is the photo that I would say is the photo of at least the last 40 or 50 years that I can think of, the all-timer. But if you have one at the end of your call, in the middle of your call, you can hit us with that at 833, the number 4 Valdez. And where I am in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Inquirer, on a day where we beat the Nazis. You think we'd be celebrating in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Inquirer runs an article, The Last Good War, huh? The Last Good War, World War II has been called. The Greatest Generation. Of course it was a good war. And of course the author goes through everything in that makes it not a good war. Neglects to say, when talking about the internment of the Japanese, who did that. And the person who did that is the most revered. Think about it. He is the most revered of progressives, of Democrats, without a doubt. That would be FDR. FDR was the architect of that. Goes on to talk about the usage of the atomic bomb. Thank God for the atomic bomb. I've studied more, seen more of what they were planning to do. So with people like this author on the cusp of a day that is major in history, Victory in Europe, but not knowing what was going to happen with the Japanese, been happier if we had 600,000 or so Americans die, and maybe millions more Japanese, because they were going to fight in every hut, every village, every whatever. Now, Harry Truman did exactly the right thing. The evidence, even after being hit once, the Japanese would not relent. Even after the second bomb, you know this now, history shows it, there still was widespread sentiment to continue to fight. where's the logic in saying this was not the good war? I mean, what do we need these people continuously trying to tear apart anything that's pro-American and correct? It was the good war. If that's not the good war, what do you have to do? When is it that America would ever be right? Taking on the Nazis and arguably equally intensely evil, the Japanese Empire. Being attacked at Pearl Harbor. The world hanging by a thread. And on this day, we have articles telling us, well, maybe this wasn't a good war. What about this? What about that? Oh, my goodness. In a struggle this consequential, you could argue mistakes were made. You could argue any of these things. But thank God we were able to fight and had the resources to win this. And coming out of the war, that America was the force in the world. All good things. All right, so 833, the number 4, Valdez is how you get on board. At the end of your call, or somewhere in there, just hit me this hour. What is that all-time photo? Compelling photos, the guy who won and also the guy who came in second. I like the second better. Do I think there was bias because it's Trump with the Pulitzer? Well, they did say the winner of the action photography was the guy who chronicled all of it. But the more compelling photo that we've all seen and was produced by Trump, I think it's a more compelling photo than any Trump photo I can think of, even the mugshot. I know all the stuff back and forth of the mugshot, but Trump with that blood coming down, it almost looks staged. It's not, but it almost looks, my God, that he survived this stuff. And then the angle with God and Providence, etc. And I've interviewed people like Sean Parnell, who's at the Pentagon now, who was there talking about this and just the breakdown of Secret Service and the nonsense that went on here. Thank God it wasn't worse. But that shot, fight with the Secret Service, Trump being held up in that, walking off with the blood, that is as compelling as it gets. A clear winner. All right, so hit us with that all-time photo. I still say the kiss for me, and particularly, it didn't happen on this day. It happened on Victory over Japan Day, VJ Day, which was the end of the war, a more compelling day, you can imagine. But I got to believe there was exhilaration. But maybe looking back on it now, what Americans probably were dreading and what they were being geared up for, we're still going to have to invade the home island of Japan. They didn't know. Almost no one did about the atomic bomb. And just think about that. Think about those of you, I don't know how many we would have listening to Rich's show tonight that are with us because they didn't attack the mainland. I know that Bill O'Reilly, who wrote the book, Killing the Rising Sun, I think is the title of the book, talks about toward the end of the book, one of those people who was steaming off to Japan, and thank God this didn't happen, was his dad. Think about the people that would not be with us in our lives, or the people that would not have been birthed by that generation. We're talking extraordinary numbers of casualties that would have happened. And we're talking about the Japanese that would have gone through that also, because the war there was even more brutal, if imaginable. The guy also talked about the tactics used by the Brits in attacking, bombing Germany. I support what they did. I mean, the idea that this was not a good war because of that just has no sense of what that must have been like for the greatest generation. But that, to me, is the photo that is always spoken to me. There are others that are poignant, big, but on this day particularly, it jumps out at me. All right, it's 833, the number 4, Valdez. That's how you get on board. I'll play you Kash Patel. He's been through the ringer the last couple of days. One with the Congress and then the House and then with the Senate. I'll play you Madeline Dean. It's a series of them, and it's just ridiculous. But first, let's go to Montreal. Let's talk with Tony on the Rich Valdez America at Night show. Hey, Tony, thank you for the wait. Hi.
How you doing?
Good, Tony.
Dom, I'm so happy to speak to you, man. I tried to follow you in Canada through your radio show in Philadelphia, and I did try to get you DMs. I think you did send me back something on Timber Tony, so I don't know if you remember me, but
sure, absolutely, yeah.
Dom, I'm so proud of you, man. I love what you say in Philadelphia, and my good friend Torts was a good man down in Philly. And,
a tough coach, yeah.
And a tough hockey player and a great hockey player in Maine with his brother Jimmy. They're twin brothers from Boston. I'm sitting in downtown St. Leonard's. It's the Italian district of Montreal. It's Milano's Cafe. And I said, I'm waiting to speak to Dom Giordano. I love you, Dom. I can't believe how great you are. And if we didn't have the legacy media blocking you in Canada because we can't get you direct, I'd have to figure out how to get you. But other than having you on Rich Valdez through WVMT Vermont, that's how I get you on a skip up here. I can actually listen to you direct on my radio. That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting in my car listening to you guys right now.
Well, thank you so much, Tony. We appreciate it. Can't you get it on the Odyssey app? Aren't you unable to do that? They blocked that too?
The Trudeau government and CTV and all their payments of $250 million protecting their legacy media. They don't want you guys in Canada, so they block Odyssey, so you can't get in. You cannot get in. That's maybe that's something Trump can fix in the next tariff war. Get it to free. Let's have Radio Free Europe.
I love it.
Have Radio Free North America with Dom Giordano in Canada. And you can have me on, and I can tell you all of the conservative viewpoints in Canada. I can tell you that all day long, man. And I just want to say, there's so many things to talk about in the United States, the Pope and this and that, and I agree with you. The Pope should, I think, concentrate on his flock, on the Bible and the message in the Bible, and not worry about air conditioners and sustainability, the green scam plan, reverse victimization strategy. I call it pork pocket pigmentation politics, divisional politics. Let's talk about unification of the great country of the United States. And by the way, Dom, the same stock of people that made that left turn at Halifax going down to New York, well, all those Italians are in Montreal. And I can tell you, when you're sitting in Cafe Milano in Montreal, there's a lot of Trump fans here because we are traditionalists. We want a traditional country here. And I just want to say out to the American people that are listening, we do not despise Trump. We agree with Trump. A lot of conservative Polyev people up here, conservative Canadians. And I just want to say one thing. When Bismarck unified Germany through both political will and through other warfare, there were 300 different districts of Germany, I think, if I can recall my diplomatic history. He said very clearly that Germany has no permanent enemies. Germany has no permanent allies. Germany only has permanent interests. Guess what? America first is a permanent interest. Trump doesn't have any permanent friends. Trump doesn't have any permanent enemies. He has the interest of his own country first. And I ask my own government in Canada, why have you not been like Trump going back 30 years and promoting our interest, the Canadian interest, equally first in the world? Because we're a symbiotic countries. We're symbiotically linked.
Exactly. Tony, I must run, but again, I hope that we can connect some more sitting in for Rich or some other way. Thank you, Tony, very much. I might play your call tomorrow on my show. Tony in Montreal here on the Rich Valdez Show. Thank you, Tony. Big shoes to fill there. All righty, 833 to number 4. Big day, Victory in Europe Day. And this photo, the kiss has always spoken to me. I'd love to hear yours. Still time to get in. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, we'll take more calls here coming up on America at Night. Now, here is Representative Madeleine Dean, insufferable. I call her the Dean of Decency because she said she was sent to Washington. Guy told her restore decency because of President Trump. Here's her back and forth with Kash Patel of the FBI about January 6th and about Dean, this congresswoman, saying, is the FBI going to show up at my door?
As you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
That. Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies list on that book.
So
there are people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people,
good.
and they were rightly called out. And you should give that book to every one of your constituents so they can read about it.
I won't be doing that.
That's their loss.
During your Senate confirmation hearings, you repeatedly denied having any involvement as a private citizen in the firing of FBI officials who engaged in the prosecution against January 6th insurrectionists, the violent rioters who beat and killed Capitol police officers, and whom you referred to as political prisoners. Since then, multiple whistleblowers have come forward, and we know that you likely committed perjury. At the same hearing, you claimed you were not familiar with Stu Peters, an anti-Semitic Holocaust denier, despite the fact that you appeared on Mr. Peters' podcast 8 separate times. 8 times. And you claimed not to recall. Mr. Patel, my second question is, should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing perjury. Tell the American people how I broke the law and committed a felony. Have the audacity to actually put the facts forward instead of lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second donation hit.
The answer is both. I believe that
the answer is you're failing, not me.
My time.
Go ahead.
All right, we have a lot coming up here on America at Night. Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Rich Valdez. America at Night on Westwood One.
Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich, who has a well-deserved night off for a big family milestone. He'll be back on Monday here on America at Night. And, with this new pope, again, I mentioned, what's he going to say when he goes to Chicago? One of the things he had retweeted or tweeted out with Vance and President Trump was asking, do you not see the suffering? Most recently retweeted a tweet that questioned Trump's action. He questioned the president, asking, do you not see the suffering? And this is in relationship to, he even used emojis, I think, on one of these. Is your conscience not disturbed? How can you stay quiet? That was after the El Salvador president's call with the Maryland man, Mr. Garcia. The big question to Donald Trump and Vance, do you not see the suffering? Give me a break. Okay? Going back to Chicago, let's talk about suffering in Chicago and the people that have to suffer on the inner city as they're overwhelmed by people that are here illegally. Let's talk New York with Dolan, the Roosevelt Hotel, and the like. Let's talk Aurora, Colorado, where you had the Venezuelan drug gang running apartment complexes. Remember that with J.D. Vance and Martha Raddatz, where he said, do you just hear yourself, Martha, saying it was only one complex? Are you kidding me? In the United States of America? So I get it. They're playing into this, the celebration. Oh, finally, an American is Pope. This guy is a knockoff of Pope Francis, and he does social media, and the social media trail shows very much the lecturing, the attack on Trump. I don't see a lot here of ever going after Pelosi and Biden and saying, do you not see that you're killing a human being? That seems to be lacking. Okay? Cardinal Robert Prevost. And also the dual citizenship issue with taking on Peruvian citizenship. Now, I think these cardinals were playing with the idea, oh, man, it's going to be received. We're going to revitalize the church in America on this. We're getting a Francis, Latin American liberation theology. We're getting both. I like the conclave. I think it's accurate. I hate the ending. But I think that's what these guys did and what they continue to do. I don't see the inspiration, the holiness, or any of it in this. This is very, very ideological, political, and that's how we had this choice relatively quickly. And when you have Pope Francis appointing directly 80 of the 133, and then you have maybe another 20, 25, God knows, who voted for him to be the Pope the last time around, what do you expect they're going to do? I know a lot of Catholics, a lot of people were expecting, could we please get someone who's not going to be political, attacking air conditioning, talking about the climate, and saying to Trump and Vance, do you not see the suffering? He really tried to take on Vance. What did Vance say that was out of line? He said charity begins at home. He didn't say not to be charitable to the rest of the world, but he was talking about the circles of charity, which, by the way, was church doctrine at one point. This then cardinal went after him. That's what you're getting. We don't need to wait and see all these other things. The record is here. That's why he was elected Pope. That's what they want. It might be hard to accept, but that's what I think you're going to see play out. Now, the president was gracious. I think he was intrigued by the American part of this, which is dubious at best, but the other parts ring true to me. That's what we're seeing here. He is a product of Villanova University in my neck of the woods in the Philadelphia area. The Augustinians, not as bad as the Jesuits, but suspect. And you might be saying, well, I'm not a Catholic. What's the impact to me? Well, you got a guy leading 1.4 billion people worldwide. You have the cover. You got to understand the politics of this. If you can be running and appealing to people that want untrammeled abortion, and at the same time, like Joe Biden, being billed by the press as a devout Catholic, that rapper, that brand, the Kennedys did it, Pelosi and these others, politically, you're golden. And that's what's happened with these popes. They go after on the so-called migrant issue, but not on the issue of life. Who are we to intervene? Well, then stop intervening and lecturing on migrants, and charity begins at home. Stay in your own lane then. No, you don't want to do that. You want to be in those lanes, but you want to look past Biden and the hypocrisy of being a devout Catholic and being for abortion and saying, well, I'm really against abortion personally, but publicly, I'm going to sign off on everything. All right, let me go to Paul, who is in Globe, Arizona. He's here on America at Night. Paul, thank you very much for the wake. Go right ahead.
Hey, Dom Giordano. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Giordano, Paul.
Okay. Hey,
yes.
Nice name, but let me respectfully say that President Trump really stuck his foot in his mouth the other day when he said something so completely outrageous. He probably killed any chance of having any respect from any leader of any nation in the entire world. You know what he said?
What is that?
He said that the United States was primarily responsible for winning the war in Europe, which the Russians did 80% of. They destroyed 80% of the German army, did 90% of the dying. Without the Russians, we would have never got across on D-Day. It was June of 1944. The Russians were in it from June of 41.
Mm-hmm.
They won many major battles at Moscow, at Stalingrad, at Kursk. And every time we needed our our chestnuts pulled out of the fire, the Russians helped us. They helped us in the Battle of the Bulge. We called them up, and they said, please start an offensive. They did. At D-Day, there's a thing called, maybe you ought to research it, Bag Ration, a tremendous offense where they ripped the guts out of the German army. The Russians were 40 miles from Berlin, and he completely disrespected that they were the major contributor. They even helped us beat Japan. We even asked them.
Oh, stop it, Paul. You're going too way far. Helping with Japan and all. They came in and jumped on it at the end. They were opportunists. Come on, Paul.
Begged them to declare war on Japan because we were afraid it would cost us 1 million men to invade Japan, and they knocked the snot out of an elite Japanese army.
What about the 2 atomic bombs, Paul, that were dropped?
Well, that was one part of it, but the Japanese are more afraid of the Russians occupying Japan, the Americans, but they'd rather have the Americans. But the Russian contribution has been, you know why there's 2 different days, the 8th and the 9th? You know why that is? Well, because on the 8th of May in 1945, the English and the Americans completely disrespected the Russians and surrendered.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. I've, with all due respect, I've had enough. I don't remember this being a big deal, which, he's going to lose respect around the world. America's might, Rosie the Riveter, factories, the material we turned out, that's what turned it. Sure, the Russians had lured the Germans in and had done a good job on that. Would they have been able to beat them without what was happening on the other front? The answer is no. Okay? Would it have gone on for a while in a stalemate? Probably. No one's disrespecting the Russians here. But don't tell me about the Japanese either. They were beaten because of the overwhelming force of American might with 2 atomic bombs. I didn't hear the direct quote with Trump. You know, there's a lot of other things going on. He's going to lose disrespect around the world through that. But on this day, if you have a photograph you'd like to throw into the mix, the kiss wasn't on this day. It was on the end of the war, VJ Day. But I've always thought it is just the most amazing photograph, although the Trump photographs are tremendous. And I suspect Paul, is looking for it with Trump. President Trump says a lot of stuff. Going back, maybe you differ with, that's fine. But on the war and disrespecting the Russians, come on now. All right, phone lines are 833, the number 4, Valdez. It's going to be fascinating to me. And I believe the Pope, I don't know, within the year. I think maybe, they're billing the American Pope. I could see it coming first to Chicago. And I'll be waiting for that. So I want to hear this, what I believe progressive Pope has to say about what has happened to the great city of Chicago. The violence, the illegal immigration that they've attracted, the spending that is enormous, just the degradation of the city. And if he goes to New York, the same thing with Cardinal Dolan. And if he comes to Villanova, the same kind of nonsense. This is nonsensical. We don't have to wait. His Twitter, his social media, not even his writings. Watch for a back and forth at some point soon with J.D. Vance. Here we go again. And one thing that's happening here, somebody called in tonight, somebody from Chicago. The younger Catholics are much more conservative. There are Catholic influencers who are very MAGA. And you're seeing that's where the numbers are surging. Catholicism is only growing in Africa, Latin America, places like that. It's not growing in the United States. People are tired of the Pope Francises of the world and people like the Cardinal in Chicago. So this is going to be really interesting dynamic. All right, jump in right now, though. Hit me with a photo if you have one. 833, the number 4, Valdez, Dom Giordano, sitting in for Rich on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Hey, that's Dom Giordano. Loving sitting in for Rich Valdez tonight on This Is an Unbelievable News Day. You have the UK tariff, and I've tried to stick on that a little bit because it's major, whatever the media says, trying to diminish it. It's moving the ball forward. The Pope, and particularly this choice, and then Judge Jeanine, if she were going to be a prosecutor in any town, that's one thing, the U.S. prosecutor. But Washington, you know what this means with all kinds of cases that are, oh my goodness, out of the blue, that being announced. So we'll see how that plays out. But if you have a photo, too, add to that on May 8th. It's on my mind. I love the kiss. I haven't been to Sarasota, Florida to see the statue to it, and it gets to ride it. But Trump is right that these are days that we should be celebrating May 8th and maybe even more the end of the war, victory over Japan Day, and saying, thank God, Harry Truman might be the last good Democrat, had the guts to say, you know what, I'm not sacrificing 600,000 American lives and untold Japanese. They were going to fanatically resist. I'm going to use the weapon. And the proof is, didn't work with one, had to do it again, and even then, you had elements in Japan that were not going to surrender. So we should have Americans die for this. And the car, with all due respect, the Russians jumping in, opportune, trying to get Manchuria and the like. Come on, give us a break here. The Russians held their own. They lured them in. But without America, that jolt suddenly coming in. You know, in football terms, just think, or basketball. You have a team holding its own, and suddenly you're putting Wilt, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant out there. You know, with a few minutes left or a quarter left, the other team worn down. Just think about it. I mean, how could you even think of competing with that? It was America. All right, let's go to Ben in Atlanta, Georgia. Ben, you're on America at Night. Hi.
Hi, Dom. How you doing?
Good, Ben.
So I did want to talk about how the atomic bomb saved lives, but if I could just say I agree with you, Trump ain't going to lose any credibility because the rest of the world knows that Americans think, you know, that we're the cause of everything.
Yeah,
So,
exactly, yeah.
You know, most of the dying that was done in World War II was Chinese and Russians.
True.
And the Russians were originally allies of Germany, and they partitioned Poland. And the only reason they became part of the Allies was because Hitler attacked Russia in June of 1941. And if Hitler hadn't messed around in the Balkans and Greece and had attacked about a month and a half earlier, they would not have survived beyond 1941. But the Russian winter got Hitler just like it did Napoleon.
Mm-hmm.
But so, you know, it was Russian blood and Chinese blood that was the majority of the blood spilled in World War II. But there was, 400,000 Americans, so that's nothing to be.
Yeah, and Ben, when we see those white crosses at Normandy, it comes home, the sacrifice of those lives. I still am amazed, I don't know about you, that it was successful to storm the beach, particularly at the point where Americans were. How in the world was that accomplished? It's almost miraculous. And I think that Spielberg's masterpiece, Saving Private Ryan, gives evidence of what that was like.
I would have given up on Omaha Beach. You know, it's just insane. And how brave those soldiers were to, like, okay, they're seeing, especially the second wave, seeing all the dead.
Oh, yeah.
And still doing it. But,
Exactly.
What I wanted to talk about was the how the atomic bomb actually saved lives. And so, you can do. I've worked in corporate finance all my life, all my career. I'm 66, and you can do a break-even analysis. If you want to determine when to start taking Social Security, or if you want to determine, do I want to buy down the rates on a mortgage?
Mm-hmm.
You can do a break-even analysis, and they'll tell you at how many years it breaks even.
Exactly. Exactly. You know what, Ben? I'm flat out of time tonight. Maybe next time if I sit in for Rich, we can talk about it a little bit more. Final roundup coming up. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, Dom Giordano rounding off the Rich Valdez show tonight. Rich celebrating a big family milestone. Will be back on America at Night on Monday. And certainly he'll have a lot to say about the things we've hit tonight as they start to crystallize. But the Pope story is going to unfold here tremendously. And as I said, this whole thing on today, victory in Europe Day, and then shortly victory in Japan Day. By the way, I don't think I'm the hugest fan of this military parade that President Trump's going to be doing, but I don't see it as authoritarian. They do it in Europe all the time in what are called the world's great democracies. They have things like this. So it's not a big deal. That's the way I would characterize it. I'd like to thank tonight, though, Tom Dulac, producer of Rich's show here, keeping things going, particularly when you're the fill-in guy. Really helps to have someone savvy during the breaks. And Christian Matos screening and the calls. If you've called in, you know how pleasant he is and authoritative on this. It is such a pleasure to do this. Hope to do it again very, very soon. Dom, with an M, sitting in for Rich Valdez on America at Night on Westwood One.